Hello and welcome to Willow Talk. Great to have your company. Adam Peacock here. Now, Elisa Healy's obviously being a professional cricketer and captaining her country, so that's a fair enough excuse for not joining me today in the studio. And Brad Haddon is away again. We'll explain exactly where he's been when he comes back. We'll leave that for then. So we've got a special guest joining us, and it's the great Dizzy, Jason Gillespie, who we've had on from time to time on Willow Talk, but he's been good enough to give us some of his spare time at the moment. Diz, how are you, mate? Great to see you again.
Adam, great to see you too, mate. And thank you for the opportunity to come and chat. And it should be a bit of fun.
Bit to cover as well, and we've got a new thing for Willow Talk, Dizzy, and you've known this because producer Joel let you know about it. We're just not going to hit you with it. Best 11. So we've asked some of our current cricketers their best 11. We've asked Hads. We'll get Heels to do it as well. We're going to get you to do it later in the podcast. Yep. And are you looking forward to the experience? Because you're going to leave some mates out of your best ever 11 that you've played with.
Yeah, obviously I had a bit of time to reflect on it and think about it. And then Joel sent me through some stats on the players that I'd played cricket with. Actually, to be honest, it was a pretty simple exercise, to be blunt. Not because it was necessarily easy. And yeah, as you mentioned, it can be tough to leave out some of your mates, but ultimately you've just got to put your selector's hat on and make some calls. And over my journey as a coach, I've had to wear the selector's hat a number of times, so not something that's overly foreign to me.
I've got this list in front of me as well. There's names, obviously like Hayden, Ponting, Langer, Gilchrist, the War brothers, but there's I wouldn't call them randoms because they played Test cricket for Australia, but there's people like Colin Miller and Stuart Clark and Brad Williams and Martin Love on there as well. So you had a big cross-section of players. You went across eras, Dizzy, so I'm fascinated to hear your best 11.
Yep. There's so many players that you mentioned there, like wonderful cricketers, and I suppose in the era that I was fortunate enough to play in, a lot of talk has been about the players that didn't get the opportunities to maybe play for Australia as much as they would have if they were born in another era. Guys like, I suppose, Stewie Law, Michael Divenuto come to mind. Martin Love, you mentioned, only played a few test matches, but, played over 100 games for Queensland, playing at the Gabba every second week and averaged over 50 batting at 3. I mean, that's a pretty serious record, and obviously record playing county cricket in the UK as well. He was a superb player that in any other era would have played a lot of test cricket.
So we'll get to that a bit later on. We've got your thoughts on a bit of cricket news that is around the place at the moment and life in general. So make sure you check out our social media channels while we're here, at Willow Talk Podcast on Instagram and TikTok. Check out our YouTube as well for full-length videos. And thank you to the people who have sent us some great umpiring yarns, and we will announce those winners of the Kookaburra gloves shortly, because I know you want to use them, because grade cricket, park cricket is underway here in Australia, so we'll get those gloves out to people shortly. But in a general sense, Des, what have you been up to? I understand you had a recent trip to the West Indies with a tour group, and you've been keeping across cricket. Well, what exactly is day-to-day life at the moment for you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm not coaching anymore. I finished up with the Pakistan Test side, so I've been. Got around and done a few sportsman's nights, dipped my toe in. I did a little bit of coaching in January. I was with the Aussie A team. The England Lions were out for some cricket, and I just helped out there as an assistant, which was a lot of fun, actually. It's a bit different being an assistant, where you're not selecting teams, telling players they're not playing or not getting contracts. Just being able to sling some balls and hit some high catches and talk cricket was a lot of fun, actually. So I really enjoyed that. But you mentioned that West Indies are our business, Gillespie Sports. We have a tour arm to our business, and so we go on cricket tours. We take supporters tours, and we do some age group cricket trips overseas. And so we took a supporters tour to the West Indies. It was our second one, and it was a lot of fun. We watched the test matches and the first two T20s, which was which was a lot of fun, and watched some pretty amazing cricket. I mean, probably nothing more amazing than that day in Kingston where Australia bowled out the West Indies for 27 or 28. That was pretty remarkable cricket, and disbelieving really, but it was fantastic. And we had all our loud shirts because we had myself and Carl Hooper were co-hosting the tour, so we had these big shirts with our faces on them, which was quite funny. So we stood out in the crowd a little bit, but it was a lot of fun and most enjoyable.
Did Carl play extracurricular tour guide really well, given he knows the landscape over there, the places to be and the people to see, away from the cricket I'm talking about?
Big hoops. He gave us some pointers as to where to go. He was only with us for the first 2 test matches, so we're in Barbados and Grenada. Carl likes to chill out a little bit. He'll have a quiet drink after play, and then he'll just sneak off to bed. But he was a lot of fun to have as company on the tour. Spent time with all our punters and speaking cricket. Everyone was so enamoured with Carl. He's such a great person, and really enjoyed his presence on the tour. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. But no, we had a few people at our tour group that found ways to enjoy themselves after hours, Adam. There was a piano bar at one of the hotels that copped a bit of a hammering from our tour group, so it was a bit of fun.
Were you playing, or you're not a musician?
No. No, I did try the saxophone as a kid in high school, but because my late grandfather used to play saxophone. He was a conductor of the Indian Pacific train that went from Sydney to Perth and back, and used to always stop in Port Pirie in South Australia, and my pop would go and play the saxophone with a band at one of the pubs in Port Pirie, and so, yeah, when Mum told me that story, I thought, I'll give the saxophone a crack. And I didn't mind playing. It was okay, but I don't think I was completely invested because I kept leaving it on the school bus when I'd on my way to and from school. So yeah, it kept getting lost. So I thought, well, maybe I'm not really invested into this instrument.
Yeah, well, you are known as Dizzy because of the great John Gillespie, who was known as Dizzy Gillespie, the great American trumpeter and composer over there. So that could have, you could have been the reincarnation of it here in Australia. But yeah, cricket was your thing, and to be fair, it's probably right choice
maybe
again,
the trumpet was the way to go instead of the saxophone. So
neighbours would have been stoked. Hey, get your thoughts on a few things that have been said and a few possibilities ahead of the Ashes. So your great mate Matty Hayden, looking at this list when we get to the best 11, you shared a Test match dressing room with him for 61 matches, by the way. So you know him very well, and you know Joe Root really well. Yes. You know Joe Root well from your time at Yorkshire.
Years. Yep.
Yeah. Matt Hayden has said, if Joe Root doesn't score a ton this summer, I will walk around the MCG naked. Does the world need Matt Hayden naked in public?
Absolutely not. I mean, he's got form here, Adam.
Okay.
Because he said the same thing when I made my double 100 in Bangladesh. I was on 70 or 80 or something, and he said, if you get a double 100, or if you get 100 or double 100, I'll do a nude lap. I said, that's all well and good, mate, but you got to remember, we're in a Muslim country here, mate, so I'm not sure that's going to work. And to be fair, Haydos, no one wants to see you without clothes on, mate. I'm sorry. You're a good-looking rooster, but no one needs to see that.
Has he got a point though? Would you imagine that? And there's incentive there for Joe Root to score 100 for everyone who will be at the MCG. But in all seriousness, that stat is going to get a trot out that Joe Root's never scored 100 in Australian soil. It's got to break soon. The guy is so much class, given how well you know him.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Matty Hayden. I think he will get 100 on this tour. But Joe's too good a player, and it is a quirky little stat. that Joe hasn't scored 100 in Australia. I certainly think that will change this tour. He finds a way to keep improving, Joe Root. And having coached him a lot, I learnt a lot of lessons from coaching Joe Root in county cricket. I'll never forget one of the early training sessions I had when I was coaching there, and I'm throwing balls to him, and one of the other coaches throwing balls and saying, "Oh, well played," all this sort of stuff, and he just called me up, and we're at mid pitch, and he just said, "Coach, this is a great session and that, but I need you to help me get better. I need you to tell me what you think I need to hear, not what you think I want to hear." And then he just sort of looked at me, turned around, walked back, and I thought about it. I thought, wow, that's for a young kid, because he was still quite a young kid at the time. He very mature head on his shoulders. It just showed a real growth mindset. Someone who wants to improve and get better, doesn't want anything sugar coated. He just wanted to get that exact specific feedback on how he can get better as a player, and he just grew from there. And I knew we had someone pretty special. This was well before he'd been picked for England, and it just showed me he was a pretty special person.
But how do you pick that apart then? If you're looking for things to, okay, you got to improve this. It'd be only finite detail, wouldn't it? Because his technique looks almost bomb-proof.
There wasn't a lot going on with his technique that wasn't very good. We had batting coaches and the like who much more qualified than me to talk to someone like Joe Root about his batting. I was very much about his mindset and that look to score mentality. Are you okay? What can I do to support you? If I don't have the answer, as a head coach, I've always been of the belief, that if I can't find the answer, but my job, if I can't give you an answer, it's my job to get that answer for you as a player, and get what you need. If I can't provide what you need, I'll make sure I find someone who can provide what you need. So that was how I approached, a player like Joe Root. But nah, he's a great kid. I call him a kid. He's mid-30s now. But yeah, he was great to work with. Great with his teammates. Very respectful. But always with a focus on trying to improve and get better. And that's why he's had such a long, distinguished career, because he's always striving to find ways to get better and improve.
It takes something special to get rid of Joe Root when he's in a bit of a rhythm, and especially on home soil as well. One player who has been able to do that over a couple of Ashes series is Pat Cummins. Now, obviously, Pat, it's a question mark whether or not he is there for the first test, if he's even available for the fifth test. We don't know at the moment. I don't think Pat knows. It's a case of his little hot spot on his back calming down, allowing him to get a bit of work in before building up to play a test match. Have you been in this position? Like just about every fast bowler in the history of mankind has had some kind of issues with the lower back. What do you read into what's going on there, and can you speak from personal experience about how long it might take?
Yeah, look, hot spots. Any fast bowler will tell you they've had hot spots in their back at some point in time. That's probably not as common for a bowler over the age of 30, or if it is a bowler over the age of 30, it could be something that's been there for a while. I think the Australian medical staff are just taking a bit of a cautious approach. Obviously with the captain, there's some white ball cricket that has gone on and is going on before the Ashes. Pat doesn't need to play those games. The focus is the Ashes. With all due respect to the one day and T20 series that are coming up and have been, their focus is on the Ashes. He's the Australian captain, and Australia needs him fit and firing. And I expect him to be ready for that first test. At worst, he'll be ready for the second test, but I suspect he'll be ready for the first test. I think there's a slight cautious approach just to make sure that the Australian captain is fit and firing for as many of those test matches as possible in the Ashes.
Hope you're right. hope you're optimistic. Your optimism is well placed, Dizzy. Hey, just on the depth chart, though, we sat in here with Hads a couple of weeks ago, so looking through, and it's such a long list, despite the fact no Australian quickers debuted since Scott Boland in 2021, the men's game, that there is a lot of depth being built of guys, putting their hand up, whether it be half up or way up in the air like some. And we went through that list and we even missed a couple, like a Nathan McAndrew, who has been so consistent in the last couple of years in all forms of cricket. What do you see? What do you see about maybe we've got our big three, and we've got Scott Boland as well, and then the one or two or three that might be required in the Ashes after that. Is there enough?
Yeah, I think there's enough. I think there's a philosophy of selection, I think, is probably the talking point. We know that since obviously with George Bailey, Andrew McDonald, experience has been at the forefront of their philosophy. There hasn't been, other than I suppose Sam Constance in recent times, there hasn't been many young players brought into the environment. Cameron Green a few years back came in, but the age profile is actually quite old, probably as old as Australia's had in Test cricket. So I suspect, as you mentioned, Scott Boland made his debut 2021. He's the same age as the big three. In terms of Stark, Hazelwood, Cummins. Cummins being a couple of years younger, of course. But as for the bowlers that are coming through, you mentioned Nathan McAndrew. I think he's the top wicket taker. Him and Fergus O'Neill, I think, in Shield cricket last few years, they're the top wicket takers. So, and Nathan McAndrew is a great story. Of perseverance and being as professional as possible and getting rewarded. I think the Australian selectors, their challenge is going to be finding the balance between the here and now and planning for the future. And if they're going here and now, obviously they'll play Scott Boland. They'll probably go with someone like a Nathan McAndrew or Fergus O'Neill who've performed well in state cricket. And they've openly said, Andrew McDonald and George Bailey, if you remember, they said the West Indies, particularly from a batting perspective, won't necessarily be what the Ashes team will look like because the conditions are so different. So they have said that. Does that play for the bowlers as well? I'm not sure. But I suspect they'll go with what they know. They'll stick to experience. But I think there is a potential opportunity to, and I think the selectors may well do this, is get one or two young quicks in and around the Australian setup. And I like what they've done. They've taken a couple of young guys over to India with Australia A. I think Straker's gone over there. I think Callum Vidler. I like the look of him, the Queensland quick.
Unfortunately.
Has he got injured? Has he? Okay, that's a real shame. He's a nice young bowler, lovely young man. I was fortunate enough to meet him last year when they were in Adelaide. Him and Straker, both nice young guys, and talented cricketers. I think overall, Adam, I think Australia will, the selectors will stick with what they know and go with experience, because that's been obviously the mantra of George Bailey and Andrew McDonald in their time together. They value and favour experience over youth.
Did you have that when you were a young guy coming into the Australian setup in the mid-90s? You kind of got a taste of it and they got you in a couple of training sessions, or it was a case of play well for your state, rock up, and you're in the test team. Good luck to you, son.
Well, I got called up 96 World Cup. Craig McDermott got injured, and I just had my first full season of Shield cricket, or back end of my first full season. So I got picked for the World Cup. I think I'd only played maybe 3 or 4 list A games, 50 over games for South Australia. And I got picked as a replacement player for the World Cup. So it was a different era, I suppose, and a different time. But I remember getting to the hotel late at night and just put my bag in my room, and then there's a knock on the door, and I open the door. There's Mark Taylor, captain of the Australian set. So he goes, "Hi, I'm Tubby. How you going?" And I'm thinking, bloody hell, I'm on a nickname basis with the Australian captain here. So it was a bit bizarre because these guys I grew up watching. So you got to remember, I was 20 years old, and these guys. I remember the 89 Ashes. I was 14 years old. I'm up in the middle of the night watching Mark Taylor punch out hundreds, Steve Waugh, all this, and all of a sudden I'm calling Steve Waugh Tugger. I'm calling Mark Waugh Jr. Warne. Oh, mate, this is pigeon. What's going on here? This is bizarre. Mr. McGrath and Mr. Warne. It was a bit weird. But one thing that I will say is that, all players, I'm sure, will say the same thing, is that you get into that Australian setup and you are welcomed with open arms. And I think part of the reason for that is because everyone has their first moment walking into that Australian dressing room, and there's the nerves, there's the apprehension or whatever, and everyone has had that experience. So they want to make sure that, when they were there, they were made to feel very welcome and very comfortable in that environment. And I think that's, that's something that you want to take on. I certainly knew when a new player would come into the dressing room, I would want to make them feel as welcome as possible, because, there have been times, you go the odd dressing room where, it's the old senior players, junior players, and earn your stripe and all this sort of stuff. So, but I never felt that in the Australian dressing room at all. It was, it was fantastic.
That was the 96 World Cup on the subcontinent, wasn't it? So
that's right.
Was this when Warne took his own baked beans on tour, or did that come a bit later?
He always took his own baked beans. He always did. Baked beans, canned, canned fruit. Little fruit
SPC,
cups. Yeah. And Warne always on tour, Baroccas. So he'd have a Barocca every morning. That would be because that was all his vitamins, he reckons. So he got all his vitamins with his Baroccas, and he'd live on his baked beans and his canned fruit. It was brilliant.
We'll get back to the here and now in a moment, but while we're on this theme, so a lot of those guys you met there, and a few others as well who came into the side about a decade later, you're all part of that 2005 Ashes, which, oddly enough, the 20-year anniversary of the wrapping up of happened a couple of weeks ago, didn't it? Or last week. I mean, everyone has...
at the moment.
Oh, yeah. But although I did read an article last night in the Times saying how, that team, 05, it became a bit sad because everyone kind of disintegrated, and there was a few issues in everyone's lives, and all that. It was like a morbid reflection of what was the greatest test series I think we've ever seen, pretty much. I mean, sorry to bring it up with you because you got custard pied after the third test, but, I mean, you were trying your best. What was your reflection of the whole time?
Look, it was a great series, and obviously I personally, I was just disappointed that I wasn't performing at the level I wanted to perform at. And I felt I was letting the team down, and I quite rightly got dropped. So that's the nature of cricket. You got to do your job, and I wasn't doing the job that the team needed, so I got dropped. But on reflection, look, what a wonderful test series it was, and it's a bit bigger than the individual. Yes, I had a disappointing individual experience there as a player because I wanted to perform better than I did. But to be part of that series I'm very grateful. Look, we'd love to change the result, but it would have been nice to win. But just to be part of it was fantastic. And the fact that we're talking about it 20 years later is testament. As you said, it was one of the greatest test series that's ever been played. So my overriding emotions and that I'm just grateful that. I'm always grateful that I was fortunate enough to play for Australia and be part of a successful team. And we weren't successful that particular tour, but we had a bit of success along the way. And you can't win absolutely everything. Wasn't through a lack of effort or trying. We were just beaten. They played well. They did their research. The English, they had a different mindset, different attitude to how they went about it. And I noticed that the very first test at Lords, even though we won that game, there's just something different about the English team. Like they'd just come out, if they were in the field, for instance, the umpires would go out. They'd be basically out in the middle, and then the English would just come out haphazardly like Brown's cows. But this English team were very different, Adam. They basically, as soon as the umpires were out, their players were all out. Warne got them into a huddle, and then they were all out in position before the umpires got into position, and they all were wearing their caps. In the past, they'd all had their county jumpers or their county caps or whatever, whatever. They'd wear anything, but they just looked united. They looked very focused, disciplined, and you could tell it was a different. I remember saying to a couple of the boys, these boys this is a different feel here. There's a different vibe, a different energy about England. And yes, we won that first test, which was great, but yeah, there was just something a bit different about them. There was a bit more urgency about everything they did.
Be interesting then on that 20 years later. Obviously, there's no correlation really to the people involved and the style of play and all of those things involved, but how they approach coming here and trying to knock us off, which hasn't happened very, very often, as we know, over the last 40 years. It's only happened once. That what they bring, that so that they know that they've got the philosophy that they think will carry them a long way in every test match that they play. But in terms of being on that same page and maybe underthinking or overthinking the hostility and the environment out here, they all say it's a hard, long tour out in Australia. It sounds like a lot of times touring squads get here and they're almost defeated when they lob. They go through customs. But that mentality about how they build that and that togetherness, that'll be a close watch in that first test in Perth, won't it?
Yeah, it will be a close watch. I'll be really interested to see how they come out. I mean, we know that their philosophy of how they play, they attack with the bat and defend with the ball. That's what they do. They, all this talk of the style of play. I know Brendan McCullum hates the term Bazball, and I think it's a bit of a nonsense term as well, to be perfectly honest. But they come out, they need the conditions to suit them. As they come out and play aggressively, they try to score fast to bring time back into the game. And then they're actually, for all the positivity that everyone talks about with England, they're actually a very negative bowling lineup. They're very defensive in the field. They're defensive with their fielding positions. They're defensive with their bowling tactics, which I think could potentially hurt them in Australia. They need to be more aggressive, in my opinion. They'll need to take it to the Australians rather than just wait for things to happen, which is what they tend to do with the ball, especially if there's not a lot happening on the surface. So it will be interesting to see how they go about it, for sure. And
what about, and you know this landscape really well with your time in county cricket over there, about that style or that way of playing filtering throughout the system, but it's not that easy to do. It's not like here in Australia where Sheffield Shield cricket, yeah, everyone wants to win, but the pride and joy is the fact that you are producing Australian players. Whereas over there, it's England, and then the counties are basically, they run their own race. They don't get told by anyone individually how to go about their cricket. How's that, do you see, working in terms of what Brendan McCullum wants an England player to look like going all the way through their system?
Well, you see it now. It's pretty obvious. The England selectors are not picking out a county cricket anymore. Like players they're performing in county cricket, but I mean, you only have to look at some of the selections that they've made to suggest that they're like Jacob Bethel hadn't scored a professional 100 in any format, and he's playing Test cricket. What does that say? So if someone was picked like that in Australia, people would say, "Oh, where's his Sheffield Shield form? Where's this?" They've decided that McCullum and Rob Key, the selectors, have decided that county cricket isn't a reflection on, performances in county cricket aren't a reflection or don't give you an idea of whether a player can play international cricket. So players they're identifying, either fast bowlers or aggressive batters, are getting opportunities with the England Lions, even though they haven't done much in county cricket or whatever level. And they put them in the cauldron of the England Lions setup. And if they like what they see, then they integrate them into the the squad.
Yeah.
So another example is like Josh Hull, left armour from Leicester, had probably not even 10 county wickets in county cricket. He's played Test cricket now. Sonny Baker, who's got moved to Hampshire because he couldn't get a game in Somerset's first 11. He bowls 140 plus Ks, gets picked for the England Lions, does well in the 100. He's played one day international now. And Somerset would not pick him in their first team. So there's obviously a discourse between the counties and England selections. Like it's almost like county cricket form does not matter whatsoever to this England hierarchy.
Yeah, it'd be a bit like us selecting Ollie Peake, for instance, who his talent is absolutely obvious and he's scored a couple of 50s in Shield cricket, yet to get 100. But in an England setup, perhaps he's fast-tracked right into the Australian squad, and obviously he's playing A cricket, but...
Yeah. Well, yeah, Ollie Peake's been kicked for the Aussie A trip to India, and that's my understanding. He's still eligible for under-19s. Look, you've got to find the balance. You've got to find a balance between rewarding performance at the next level down. So in Australia, Sheffield Shield cricket, domestic one-day cricket, BBL, and then this is why selection is not straightforward. Because if you just went on stats, you actually don't need selectors. Because then you just go through and look at the stats, who's done well, and then you pick them. But that's not selection, because you've got to find the balance between the here and now, the future. You've got to identify talent, someone who you think can play and evolve and improve and be a big player for your country long term. So, yes, the Shield player who's done really well and performs well week in, week out, that might be their level.
Yeah,
they might be an excellent Sheffield Shield cricketer, but and we see it if you go down a step as well. You see it in club cricket in Australia, Premier Cricket. You see so many very good A-grade cricketers who perform week in, week out for their clubs, and their clubs are saying, "Oh, why aren't they getting an opportunity playing state cricket? Oh, this, that, or the other." But that's a huge jump. You go from playing Saturday to Saturday the next week, play one day, then you have a week off, then you play the second week of the game, to then all of a sudden playing 4 days in a row. I can tell you now, that sorts out the men from the boys. And it doesn't, good club form doesn't necessarily translate into someone who can play Shield cricket. And it's the same, Shield cricket and county cricket doesn't necessarily translate. If you play well in county cricket, it doesn't translate into you being a test cricketer.
On that theme, just quickly, I did notice on the weekend driving past a lot of open space here in Sydney that a lot of that open space was all of a sudden taken up by cricketers, be it at park cricket level or grade cricket, and it's great to see everyone enjoying themselves in the sunshine. Did you ever go back when you stopped playing at the top level, Diz, to go and play with a bunch of mates, I don't know, on a Saturday Arvo or any grade Premier cricket, whatever it's called around the country? What I do want to know is if you did, what was the look on the opposition face who recognised you and went, "Oh shit, really?"
I actually went back. I'd finished playing first class cricket, so I was in my mid-30s. I'd been transitioning. I was just starting out in the coaching ranks, and but I'd never actually captained a side more than maybe once or twice where I filled in, and I wanted an insight as a coach, what it's like to be a captain. So I agreed to captain the Adelaide Cricket Club, my home club, the second grade, B grade. And the main reason was they started at 12:30 instead of 10:30, so I had an extra couple of hours at home with the family before the games. I didn't bat higher than 6. I only bowled off 5 or 6 steps, just bowled little diddly dobblers.
Nice
fielded at mid-on. Yeah, I just fielded at mid-on as well, but it was great. I mean, I was mid-30s. You asked, was I playing with my mates? Well, technically not, because I was in my mid-30s, and probably the next oldest kid was about 18. So I was basically had this group of young players that were hoping to play higher at Adelaide Cricket Club. So I was there as a bit of a mentor, I suppose, and but I enjoyed it. They were a great bunch of lads. Quite a number of them went on and played A-grade cricket, which was great. But had that one season and enjoyed it. I enjoyed the captaincy and being around the player more than the actual playing, the batting or the bowling. And I knew the moment that I was completely done, Adam, was I walked out the batting at 6, 4 down. There was an offie bowling, and first ball I just drop kicked him for 6. Second ball I smacked it through the offside for 4. Then got another boundary and then got out. I walked off the ground about 15 runs off about 4 or 5 balls. And I'd always been a nervous batter. I'd always go out, I'd be, defend for half an hour before I even looked to play a shot. And this day I've just gone out and bang, 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 gone, I don't care anymore. And I knew I was done. So that was, it's actually a lot of fun. I thought, gee, I remember thinking at the end, having a beer, I think, geez, imagine if I'd played first class or test cricket like that, just walked out and started slogging. That would have been a bit of fun, but not.
Yeah. You might not have a double ton though, so yeah.
No, that's true. I'm glad you brought that up, because I always get told off because everyone's busy. You bring up your double ton all the time, but I'm glad you brought it up first.
You don't. You mention it that much, you don't even realise you bring it up now because you brought it up early in the podcast, about 5 minutes in.
Yeah, I can't remember, man. It's just, the greatest innings of all time. I mean, how can you not?
Yeah, it just blends itself into every conversation, doesn't it? Oh, man. I'm just disappointed in that grade cricket game that you didn't do the old off 20 steps, do the seagull run in as well and just bowl one. Because Stuart Clark has played grade cricket here in Sydney, and the report is that he goes and plays 4th grade and still just bowls at people's chin. Like, just makes it really uncomfortable.
I was actually chatting to him the other day because we were commentating together up north, the Northern Series, and he still said, every now and again I still turn up and and play. And my first thought was, why? what? 50 years old, mate. Like, come on. I mean, if I bowled now, I don't reckon I'll be able to move for a month.
Hey, let's get into sundries quickly because we're going to get to your best 11. We're like this.
Okay.
This chat is is so much fun, but we'll get to sundries. Quick one, Asia Cup. It's on at the moment, so there's obviously huge nations, cricketing nations like Oman, UAE, and Hong Kong and the like. But in all seriousness, India played Pakistan. As we sit here right now, overnight, India gave it to Pakistan quite easily. 7-wicket win. Kuldeep Yadav in the wickets like he was in the previous game. But, obviously all the commentary is about the fact that they didn't shake hands. I'm actually amazed that the game went ahead because it's so on a knife's edge about everything politically that's going on over there. But I'm just happy that the game went ahead. Okay, the handshakes is the handshakes, and obviously there's political tension, but ICC events are going to be seriously compromised if these games don't happen.
Yeah. Yeah, couldn't agree more, Adam. And as you said, it is a political hotbed and probably a bit above our pay grade to know all the ins and outs of that. We just want to see cricket played, don't we? It's a tricky one. Obviously, I saw Suryakumar Yadav, the Indian captain's comments about why they didn't shake hands along the lines of standing firm with the BCCI and their government. I think it puts players in a tricky position, doesn't it? What do they do? I don't think there are any winners in this. Obviously having been involved in Pakistan cricket last year, understand the passion and that in that country about the game. Their game, they're struggling at times as well. It's just a terrible situation, and I think you're right. I think the ICC and all these tournaments are compromised. If they can't come to an agreement that these teams play each other, either in each other's countries, I mean, they're all neutral venues, as it would appear. It's a real tricky one, mate. And, hopefully there's a solution at some point down the track, but at the moment, it doesn't look like that's likely in our lifetime.
No, and like the World Test Championship cycles, they'll never play each other. So, I mean, I've said for a long time I'd love to see the MCG host the India-Pakistan match. If it's going to be on a neutral territory, I'm sure you'd pack that 5 days in a row. So,
without a doubt, I think it'd be an amazing Test match. I think both teams would absolutely love to play. I think you put all the politics aside. Players just want to play against the best players. And, obviously India v Pakistan, would be a massive ratings winner, even if it was played here in Australia. That's for sure. I mean, the fans, both Indian and Pakistan fans, would come out in force. You get a lot of Australian cricket fans come out and watch that game, because that would be an amazing atmosphere.
Yep.
So let's see what would happen. Yeah, maybe one day it might happen.
It's a crazy mixed-up world we live in right now, but there is normality in the sense that the Australian women's cricket team have handed out a severe beating of India in their first one-dayer, won by chase down 280 plus with 6 overs remaining, with the loss of just 2 wickets. Heels 27, run a ball. She did her role at the top there, but standard. Phoebe Litchfield 88. Affected a run out, I think, as well. Phoebes, Beth Mooney, Annabelle Sutherland in the runs as well. They're favourites for the World Cup. That's probably a fair enough summation, isn't it, Diz, that they're a step ahead at the moment, and it's up to England to all of a sudden turn around under a new coach, or India to find something out of nowhere on home soil.
Yeah, I think they're as you mentioned, India and England are probably the only 2 teams that I could see challenging Australia at all. England, I think England is still a little while away. I think that they were clearly outclassed here in Australia last year. I thought they were really poor. I don't think they're fit. I don't think they're robust, strong. I don't think their skills are at the level yet. But India are probably the team, and India just copped an absolute beating overnight. But they're a better team than that. They'll put together better performances than that. Australia obviously dominated that game, but India are better than that, and will put better performances on the board, I reckon.
The T20 series for the men between England and South Africa, a bit of a fast in the first game, some rain around in Cardiff. They said that the game maybe shouldn't have gone ahead. It did. It was like 5 overs each or 6 overs each or something. But the second one, England went Burko, 2 for 304. There's Phil Salt, 141 off 60. Josh Butler went berserk as well. It's the biggest score against 2 full-playing nations in T20 cricket. That'd be fun to bowl in, wouldn't it, Diz?
No. Not even a little bit. No. No. Look, I was fortunate enough. I coached Phil Salt at Sussex, and then got him over to the Adelaide Strikers a few years ago. Great kid. Really good player. One of the cleanest strikers of the ball you'll see. And I think he's learning the balance between, I think criticism earlier in his career, and certainly when he came to the Strikers for 2 seasons, was, he'd get out the same way a number of times, almost like he was making the same mistakes. But I think as he's played more and he's got into that England setup and he's been a little bit more selective, he's showing the absolute talent that he has, and to get 140 off 60 balls, I mean, that you need a lot to go right as well.
Yes.
You need a little bit of luck along the way, but to score that many runs off that many balls is absolutely incredible. And to score 300, that's 15 and over, Adam. 15 runs and over for 20
with Rabada in the attack.
With Rabada in the attack, it's a good attack. The South Africans, they're a really good team, and that's an absolute shellacking.
But we talk of the calendar squeeze that's on in all cricket all around the world, and this was another example of what went down on the weekend in England over the last few days, that the T20 Blast, their finals were on at the same time as T20 international cricket. So there's obviously convergence. There's only so many games a player can play in. The priority is obviously England, but the T20 Blast, it was still a pretty good tournament and final, and Somerset and Hampshire involved in the final. But man, something's going to give dramatically soon with this whole calendar all around the world, and that's just a little example of it.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I think where it'll go, I think the city-based cricket, the franchise cricket, will take more prominent place going forward. I'm not sure if there's as big an appetite for T20 internationals as the ICC believe or countries believe. I just wonder if that could be kept for, I think there's too many World Cups as well. T20 T20? Is it one every 2 years? Is it or
every
something
2
like
years.
that?
Yeah, there's one next March. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
If you're going to have an every 2 years, we don't need bilateral international T20. I don't think. And be a bit more selective with with one day tournaments. The 1 day game, 50 over game is a great game. But we just got to make it a little bit more selective to keep things fresh. Obviously there's only 12 months in a year, and we want to see the best players playing as often as possible. So I think we've just got to find the right balance.
Speaking of selective, it's time for you to get selective. Jason Gillespie after the break here, after our drinks break on Willow Talk. Back in a moment with Jason Gillespie's Best 11. Special guest Jason Gillespie on this edition of Willow Talk, and it's time for his Best 11. It's time to make an enemy or two of his best mate who might text him after listening to this and go, "What'd you leave me out for? What'd I do to you?" No, in all seriousness, so it's basically choose an 11, mate, with who you played Test cricket with, not against, with.
Yep. So, Adam, what I want to do is preface this with I saw some of the comments after Hads did his Test 11, right? And so people say, "Oh, where's Travis Head?" You guys made it very clear. It's who Hads played cricket with. So I want to say that to everyone out there. If you get a comment, just remember, it is players I played with. Yep. Okay, so Bradman is not in it.
Why not?
Tendulkar is not in it for all our Indian fans. Okay? Travis Head is not in it. I coached him. But that doesn't mean I played cricket with him. So you're happy for me to start, mate?
Yeah, it's about 35 the cricketers that you played Test cricket with, all the way from who'd you play the most with? Matty Hayden on 61 Test matches you played of your 71, all the way down to Stuart Clark, Dan Cullen, Nathan Horrocks, Shane Watson, Phil Jakes. You played one Test match with guys like that. So everyone included and everyone in between. Your top of your order, Diz, opening batters. I've got a fair idea who you might mention here.
Well, I'm going to start with the guy you mentioned. I played 61 Test matches with him, Matty Hayden. Averaged well north of 50, I think. In Test cricket that I was fortunate enough to play cricket with him. He's just such an imposing character at the top of the order, so positive, so aggressive, and to me it was a pretty simple decision, to be honest, to start the Haydos off at the top of the order.
And his opening partner in crime?
Had a bit of a think about this, and obviously there's been some great openers like the Michael Slaters, the Mark Taylors, but I'm going to go with Haydos's little mate, Justin Langer. Played a lot of cricket with him as well. Just thought they were a wonderful combination. You get us off to great starts. As a bowler in a team like that, when you see your openers go out and have the starts that they had, it gives you a lot of confidence. I know one of Langer's, JL's favourite things, he's got this framed photo from a Test match we played against New Zealand in Hobart. And obviously Haydos was always known as the enforcer and got on with it and that, but JL had a field day, had a day out this morning and had played well. And JL had brought up his 50 and Haydos was one not out at the other end. And he's got the scoreboard. When he brought up his 50, it's got Langer 50, Hayden 1. And that's one of JL's most favourite things in the world, that he got to upstage Haydos once in the scoring stakes.
Who's the man you're sending out when one of those two gentlemen is dismissed at 3?
Well, this one again was pretty simple. This is a guy who asked me to be his night watchman because he couldn't handle the heat in Bangladesh. He was the number one batter at the time in Test cricket. He was our captain as well. Ricky Thomas Ponting. I said at the time, Rick, you're the number one batter in the world, mate. You can go out. I know it's tough out there in Chittagong. It's spinning and seaming and it's swinging everywhere. I get it, but you're the best batter in the world. And he said, Diz, just put your pads on and go out there. And so I did. But I digress. punter. He would have averaged, I reckon he would have averaged close enough to 60 when I played with him. He was just a wonderful cricketer and great guy. Captained Australia for many years as well. Was a wonderful leader and a great guy. No hesitation in putting him at number 3.
You pretty much debuted at the same time. Do you remember any Shield battles against him? Early doors where you thought, I've got this guy's measure, but you didn't? One.
So, no, I remember not much Shield cricket. I was Shield cricket towards the end of our careers, and but I remember one under-19 game, South Australia v Tasmania. We were playing a tournament in Melbourne, and punter had obviously played a season or two of Shield cricket, so he was the big fish in the little pond of the state under-19 comp, and he's walked out at 3 for Tassie. And I'm just this little dibbly-dobbler medium pacer from South Australia, tall and skinny. I was bowling maybe 110 k an hour, 115 k an hour, whatever. So I was slow. But we knew there's no way we're going to get this bloke out. He's just a gun. He's on the verge of playing for Australia. So I just said to our captain, we're going to do something different. We're going to just try and smoke him out somehow. So I'm at the top of my mark. I walk over and I've just told everyone to go onto the offside. So we're going to have a 9-0 for you. And Ponting's I'd never met Rick at this stage. Like, Ponting's looking at me and he mouthed some expletive. I told him to go to hell, whatever, or something a bit stronger. And then I proceeded to bowl 2 foot outside off stump. And I just bowled and he just let it go and he's spraying me and he's trying to hit a couple and he's having a go, weak, this is crap, what sort of cricket's this? And then he's just real wide one and he's just got a bit of bat on it and hit it straight to gully, out. So, and then he's so annoyed with himself because he's fallen for the trap. He smacked his stumps down and got suspended for a game. So we had a little bit of fun with that. It was, and then sure enough, 2 years later, we're teammates. It was quite surreal, but yeah, bit of fun with Rick. Yeah,
brilliant. How good. Okay, moving on with your best 11, 4 and 5.
These were again relatively straightforward, and obviously some great players. The other guy I thought for this position, who I played a lot of cricket with, was Mark Warne. But I decided to go with Damien Martin. And the reason is I just think he was a strong performer. He's probably one of the most elegant and aesthetically pleasing batters and probably the best timer of the cricket ball that I've ever seen, Damien Martin. And I think he played some pretty amazing innings for Australia. I know Mark Warne played one of the best knocks I've seen in Port Elizabeth in 1997, chasing a 270 in the 4th innings to win a game, and that was a great knock. But I think Damien Martin, particularly some of his exploits on the subcontinent when he probably wasn't at the time renowned as a player of slow bowling, he found a way to turn himself into a great player of spin. So that showed a lot of flexibility and adaptability. So, for that reason, for those reasons, I put Damien Martin in at 4.
Yeah, and which, like on reflection, it feels like when you put those names together, Mark Warne, Damien Martin, everyone would probably lump for Mark Warne, which lends you to the thought that Damien Martin perhaps a little, not underappreciated, but, under the radar a little. But when you played with him, looking at these records, he averaged 51 across 6 years of Test cricket when you were in the same side as him. So he was no bunny, put it that way.
No, he was no bunny. He was a wonderful player. And as I said, aesthetically pleasing. I mean, you only have to go on YouTube. My son went on YouTube the other day. He said, Dad, you played with Damien Martin, didn't you? I said, yeah. He said, have a look at some of these shots. And there's just some of these nice drives to the offside. You just go, oh, wow. Like, how good. Like, he was just a wonderful player, great teammate to have in the team. And, he was a massive contributor to a lot of our success.
At 5, who you got?
This one was pretty straightforward, and I've named him captain of this team is Steve Waugh. Captain.
Tough bugger? As tough, when you got to know him inside a dressing room and how he led players, Did the personality match the kind of aura around him outside the dressing room with us fans and press and everything as a really tough leader of men?
No, he was tough, and he expected high standards, but in the dressing room, like, Tugger was one of the boys. Like, he found that really good balance between being the leader and one of the lads. Like, he'd have a joke with everyone as much as anyone. He'd meet down in the hotel and have a quiet drink and talk cricket. He was a great guy, and but you were left in no doubt who the leader of the team was. Tugger was the captain, but he was a great guy. He had he formed a wonderful relationship with John Buchanan as captain and coach, and took us to a lot of success. But yeah, he was great. Really enjoyed playing under Stephen, and he was a fantastic leader.
Were you a fan of the baggy green rule, that in the first session of when you're in the field you had to wear the baggy green?
Yeah, I was. I liked it. It was for 1 hour. It was for, first half hour. Look, wear it for 6 to 8 overs, and then you could change your cap. And I know some guys, I know Warne and Junior weren't overly enamoured with it, and I think that's as much as a bit of ego to say, being told what to do, sort of thing. So they were sort of individuals, and which is cool. I didn't mind it. I suppose on reflection, the only time I wish, if I had my time again, was at Wimbledon in 2001 when we all wore our baggy greens, watching Pat Rafter play in the Wimbledon final. I kind of, if I had my time again, I probably wouldn't have worn my baggy green to Wimbledon. Probably would have just kept it for the cricket field.
Were you getting some strange looks on that day?
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, at least you got a baggy green to wear. That's the main thing.
Fair.
What about 6? Who's in at 6?
Yeah, now, look, I went with a guy who, again, contributed to a lot of successes for us. Probably didn't play as many games with him as a lot of these other guys, but his record, superb, great tourist. My captain at South Australia, Darren Lehman. I don't know what his numbers were, Buff Lehman, but I would suspect they were very good. But he
averaged 50 when you played with him. Yep.
Yeah, he contributed to a really good, relaxed, focused team environment. It was someone that would bring everyone together. Not necessarily socially and that. Like, he'd always be the one. Right, let's everyone meet and we'll be together. And this is we've just won a game, or we're about to go into a really important tour. Let's all get together and have a chat and hang out and be a team. And so he was a great person to gel. He would help gel the squad and the team together. Perform really well. And stood there at short leg, could bowl useful little left arm spinners. Well, I say spin, they never spun, but he was just a really good guy to have around the group, and someone that I've probably learnt as much about the game off as anyone. Obviously played a lot of state cricket with him, played county cricket with him at Yorkshire, and obviously played for Australia, and he's one of my great mates. Someone that I learnt a lot off in the game of cricket.
Who are you going at 7? I'm tipping a wicketkeeper, and I'm pretty sure I know who that might be.
Yeah, I reckon you'd be pretty sure. I mean, I did play my early career with one of the greatest wicketkeeper batsmen that's played the game in Ian Healy, but I can't go past Gilly. He was just a different level. I think incredibly underrated as a wicketkeeper. A lot of people talk about his exploits as a batter, and his exploits are unbelievable, but the work he did on his wicket-keeping each and every day, he learnt that from Heels and Rod Marsh, no doubt about that, the work ethic to be the best keeper. I mean, Gilly would bat in the nets. He would do all his batting skills and do his extra work or whatever, but if he didn't have his bat in hand, he'd have his keeping gloves on or his inners on, and he'd be doing work. And I remember Ashes Tour 01, Wade Second was our backup keeper, and Wade knew that unless Gilly got injured, he was never going to play. But Wade challenged Gilly to, I'm gonna keep working you hard, and keep you going and help you prepare as well as you can for the test matches. And we were preparing for this game. We'd finished, training was finished, and Gilly and Chucky second were just doing some keeping drills, and their bus was about to leave or whatever. And they said, no, we'll just get a black cab back to the hotel. So we've gone back through the streets of London. It's taken us about half an hour to get back to our hotel. We've gone upstairs, mucked around, checked on things, showered up, came down, had a beer in the bar. And we're probably the second beer in the bar. So this is a couple of hours later. And then a black cab rolls up and Wade and Gilly get out of the cab. They'd literally just finished their session. So they would have been at it for 3 hours.
Wow.
And that was common on that tour. Yeah. And people don't know that about Gilly, about just how hard he worked, because he always saw himself as a wicketkeeper who batted a bit. Everyone else saw him almost as the punters would see him as a batter who kept a bit.
A bit.
That makes sense. So he very much saw himself as a wicketkeeper, and his keeping was so didn't get the accolades he deserved. He was a wonderful keeper. He barely missed a thing behind the stumps. He was fantastic. He kept to Warne for many years, and McGillar and Colin Miller. He did it so well. So I take my hat off to him.
Into the bowlers now. So 8, 9, 10, 11. Take it away.
Okay, I'm going to go a leg spinner.
Yes.
He was a pretty decent bowler.
He was okay.
Yeah, and he kept out Stuart McGill. Stuart McGill got over 200 Test wickets, and this guy kept him out. So no guesses as to who it is. Shane. Warne was amazing. One of the best players I ever played with, without a shadow of a doubt. He could just turn a game on its head through almost sheer will. He had such belief, that no game was lost. You could win from anywhere, and he would just go with it and would just follow. And he was brilliant, and he was a great guy to have around the dressing room. He was a lot of fun, and he's sorely missed as well. Taken from us far too soon, the great man. But his legacy lives on.
Earlier we were discussing Warne having a laugh about the 96 World Cup and, travelling on the subcontinent. But that 20 year ago now Ashes series, what was he like at the end of Test matches? Because he bowled and bowled and bowled and kept taking wickets, because that's why he kept bowling, because he kept on taking wickets and spinning it sideways. That one day Andrew Strauss rings out.
Look, good. He was good, but he got a bit tired, but he was actually like, he wasn't fit in the sense that he could run a beat test or do these UK time trials and dominate, right? But he was fit for purpose. His job was to bowl leg spin and spin the ball hard, and bowl long spells and spin it all day and back up the next day and back up the next day. That took it out of him, but he was conditioned for that. He was very fit. Ask me, he was very fit for purpose. His job was to bowl leg spin, and I mean they did some. I remember years and years ago they did some studies at the Cricket Academy, whatever, and Warne actually put more energy through the crease with his body than Glenn McGrath, and
wow.
Just shows how much energy he imparted on the ball to get through the crease. Glenn was more rhythmical and smooth. He had the run up to back up, but Warne actually, all that effort and grunt, because he walked into bowl, if you remember, and then he would just, all his energy would be to spin all hard. Yeah. So he was very fit. He was very strong. He was just a strong man. I mean, you go to shake his hand and you walk away wringing your hand. He was that strong. And it's no surprise. You could tell why he could spin the ball so hard, because he was so strong.
Okay, your pace attack. Assuming you're not going with Stewie McGill and the dual leg spin.
No, we're not going to go dual leg spin. I've got Darren Lehman to roll out some little left arm nude nuts, as a fifth bowling option. But I've gone four seamers, because I've got one as 12th man. But the three seamers I've got Brett Lee, just wonderful bowler, bowled like fast, swung the ball, could reverse swing if nothing much was happening, if the conditions suited. But airspeed was the key. He bowled fast and
scary fast, fast.
He bowled scary fast. He bowled some spells that were just extraordinary. And a great guy to have around the group. Worked incredibly hard. Had a lot of injuries, and I'd always admired his tenacity and how he used to come back, particularly a lot of his ankle injuries and that he'd had in his career. He always managed to find a way to come back bigger and better and stronger, and always respected that with Brett. But he was great. So he's my number 9.
Yep, 10, 11. I know who 11 will be, and we'll get to him, but yeah.
Yeah, so number 10, this one, I had a number of options. Obviously, guys like Paul Rifle, Damien Fleming, Andy Bickle, who I played a bit of cricket with, all would be more than deserving of this spot. But I've gone Mike Kasperovich. He played a big role for us in a couple of series on the subcontinent. Took key wickets, bowled key spells, long penetrating spells with the old ball as well as the newer ball. And again, a great tourist, a great guy to have around, someone that I learnt a lot off as well. I'd spend a lot of time with Casper, learning about the art of bowling, and cricket. But yeah, great guy and, wonderful fast bowler. For Queensland, played number of counties and obviously played for Australia. So he's my number 10.
And is your number 11 the bowling all-rounder of New South Wales, Glenn McGrath?
He is indeed. No, and what's more to say? Over 500 Test wickets at low 20s. My opening bowling partner. He always made me bowl uphill into the breeze. His theory was that if he bowls downhill with it and I bowl uphill into it, we're both the same pace.
Harsh.
And then I said, well, what if I bowl, because I'm quicker than you, what if I bowl with it downhill? Then you're still accurate and do that. He said, well, I'm the senior bowler and I get to pick my end, so I'm bowling this end. And that was the end of the conversation, Adam. That was it. That was it. Okay, Pidge. I didn't mind because I was just happy to play for Australia. And I go, well, 50% of the overs have to be bowled into the breeze uphill, so I'm happy to do that. But Glenn, brilliant. I learned a lot from him, I suppose the main thing I took away from Glenn was to keep the game simple. We can overthink at times about what you need to do. And, I remember asking him what his keys to success are. He goes, well, I don't really swing the ball. I don't seam it much, but I know with my height and bounce, if I land the ball there, I can land it 95 times out of 100 on that spot on the wicket, and I know I'm going to get wickets. And he just had that. I haven't played cricket. I don't know anyone in life, sport or life, that has a more positive outlook on things than Glenn McGrath. He just was so up and about. He, and I suppose a good example of it is that he always gets asked what the Ashes prediction's going to be, and he always says 5-0. Yeah. And you've got to, it's not an arrogant thing by Glenn. It's just, he's very process orientated, process driven, because he's very matter of fact. He goes, well, I know Haydos and Lang will get us off to a good start. I know Ricky will do well, and then our middle order batters, they'll score the runs, and then, and I know Gilly will come in and cameo or whatever, and then we'll have all these runs on the board, and then I'll do my job. I know Diz, you'll do your job. We've got Warne, and we've got Casper, and we've got Brett. Everyone will just do their bit and get their wickets, and then we'll win that first match, and then we'll go to the next game, we'll do that again, and we'll do it again, and we'll do it again.
It's pretty simple.
That's how his mind works, right? So it's very process oriented. It's not an arrogant thing at all. He's having, anyone who meets him knows he's the least arrogant person in the world. He's just a wonderful human being and great guy, but such a positive outlook on life. And, had some challenges in his life. Obviously, his first wife passed away, and he was so, him and Jane, they were so positive throughout that whole experience and that. And, he's just the outlook on life is something that I've certainly taken away from my time with Glenn for sure.
Well, mate, it's a brilliant 11. And you've named your captain already in Steve Waugh. All that's left is the 12th man, and a lot of people are going down the social committee path with this about the best organiser of celebrating a win, perhaps, or others have gone with vibes, or others have gone just, they're the 12th best in my eyes. Which way have you gone?
So, well, I've kind of thought about all those things, but I can't. And the reason I've gone this guy. One, socially, enjoyed a night out, enjoyed celebrating a team victory, but probably one of the most team-orientated guys I know, and I'll explain why, but it's Andy Bickle. The great Andy Bickle probably has been 12th man more than anyone in Australian cricket history. When he got told he was 12th man, John Buchanan would come and tell him, or the captain would come and tell him, we'd be at training either 2 days out or the day out, and he'd go for a run, just to get rid of his frustration, and he's just desperate to play. He just wanted to play, so he'd go for a 5k run, 10k run.
Some blokes would go to the bar and have 10 beers, but he'd go for a run.
Yeah, that's right. But Andy, and this is why I love him so much, because he wanted to be in that team. He wanted to be one of the 3 quicks. He was like the 4th quick, so he was the perennial 12th man. But these were in the days, early 2000s, where we didn't have a designated bowling coach that was on tour. So we'd all help each other out as bowlers. But Bick would be at training and we'd all be bowling, and he'd be trying to press for a claim to play, and he'd probably deep down, he knew he probably wasn't going to get a game, or he'd just been told he wasn't in the 11. But he'd be helping all us bowlers to get better, and he would always help me. He knew all my cues, that if there was something I wasn't doing quite right, sometimes my front foot would go across too much, pointing to fine leg instead of going down towards the target. He would remind me. He'd say, Diz, I've just been watching you. You just need to go a bit straighter because that affects your outswinger. And, I think just keep an eye on that. And, for a guy who was desperate to play and, we were all, in essence, competing for spots in the team, he still found time to want to help an individual improve and get better. And I always remembered that. He used to have this yellow cone, like the you put on the ground, the trainers put on the ground, and he'd write in a Sharpie, "Dizzy, don't step on me," and he'd put it on the front crease at training, and to remind me to step towards my target. So just little things, and this is why he's such a successful bowling coach now, I suppose, and has been for a long time. But a guy like that who would help his teammates, would be a great 12th man, but would celebrate with the boys when we had a win as much as anyone. So that's why I've got the great Andy Bickle as 12th man.
Well, mate, I knew it was going to be a good best 11 plus the 12th man, and it's delivered. So, Jason Gillespie, really appreciate your time, mate, and providing that for us and your thoughts earlier. Have a good one, and hopefully catch up with you over the summer at some point.
No worries, Adam. Thanks for the opportunity. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, mate. Back with more Willow Talk later in the week. Yeah, thanks for watching the Willow Talk podcast on YouTube. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't have to miss an episode wherever you